Hi, welcome to The Way podcast. I'm your host, Ryan McKean.
And I'm Brittany Green.
Welcome to The Way with your best era hosts, Ryan McKean and Brittany Green. The podcast where we dive deep into the world of legal business and marketing. Each week, we'll be discussing the latest trends, strategies, and insights that are shaping the legal industry. So whether you're a lawyer, marketer, or business owner in the legal industry, this podcast is for you.
Hey, Brittany. So this is like episode something for us.
Something. We keep losing count.
We do.
Pam tells us after she edits it.
We do keep losing count, but that's okay because we are not here to count episodes. We are here to add value to whoever out there is listening, and we are getting more listeners, which is weird because this feels like our internal communication, our conversations. We're here comfortably in Best Era World headquarters in our studio, and we are looking at a big clock that is for elderly people to see time, to keep track of time, so we don't ramble too long. Yeah,
because we know you guys hate that. But yeah, we appreciate all the listeners, and we'll do the obligatory like and subscribe and follow if you're out there. It obviously helps us reach more people as well, so thank you for doing that.
So this episode is really inspired by one of our favorite salespeople, Rob Coleman from Hennessey Digital.
He's the best.
He is an awesome salesperson. We've been pitched by a ton of people, and maybe Rob just vibes for me, but he's very educational, knowledge-based, matter-of-fact. And, every sentence like Rob says, it's almost like, oh, shucks.
Yeah, well, right. He's just authentic. He's not comes off as salesy. It's never felt like even though it is technically a pitch that he's delivering to you, it does not feel like a pitch. It just, like you said, it feels like education.
Yeah, he's like, here's where you are. Here's what is. Very, very well done. And I am super excited because we invited Rob and he agreed to come speak to our Slack community in February for a sales-based Ask Me Anything. When we did personal injury, we didn't have to do a lot of sales. We weren't asking people for money. It was just, hey, we're good, sign up, and we're going to take your case and help you. But we work with a whole host of firms, both in personal injury, out of personal injury, who have to do sales. And in fact, at Best Era, we have to do sales as well.
Yeah, we can certainly learn a thing or two from him. And I like to think we come off that way as well with our clients as we talk to them about Best Era and why it could be the right choice for them. It has been interesting shifting gears of coaching clients that come from family law, criminal defense, business law, all those different avenues where, you have to at intake pretty much ask people for a retainer up front, and the language to, do that in an empathetic way, but in a powerful way to get clients to have the confidence in believing why they should do that.
Exactly. And so we're excited to have Rob, but we're not talking sales today. We are talking up the funnel a little bit. We are still talking marketing. And so one of the big challenges for any firm, right? I think in 2025, not even, probably 5 years ago or 10 years ago, was it even accepted that law firms should be marketing or really be focusing on marketing. But I think that message has largely gotten out, which is the first problem that any lawyer faces, which is the need to have clients. If you do not have clients, you do not have a practice. And if you don't have practice, you don't have money. And it doesn't matter how good you did in law school, how great your briefs are, how wonderful of a trial lawyer you are. It is the very first problem. So I think that message has gotten out, at least to the people who talk to us and we talk to. So that's a healthy, good thing. But the question then sort of becomes really twofold. Like, how much do I allocate to market in terms of time, money, and what channels do I use to do that, right? Because the real thing is that the money is in the details. I know I come from the personal injury space, Brittany, and I've seen firms that, they turned on the marketing massively they generate a bunch of cases, and it creates a significant amount of problems for them because suddenly they have to work these cases. They may not have the infrastructure. I believe Harlan Schillinger, who's deemed the godfather of legal marketing, says, it's not just enough to make it rain, you have to catch the rain. So spending too much on marketing, being too successful, if you're not ready for it, can lead to some problems. And also, like, if you're spending half of the money you make on marketing, well, how are you going to hire good people?
Right.
Are you going to get cheap insurance? You don't have the 3, 4, 5 million in coverage. You have the 250,000 in coverage, and you're hoping, right, that it will work out. Or you're buying like the store brand soda for your kitchen. Whatever the case may be, there's a cost to it, and you don't want to tip it over.
That's exactly right. And how is it worth it to, spend all of this money on marketing if you're not profiting from it at the end of the day? So there is this fine balance of making sure you are putting just the right amount in to marketing that gets you the amount of cases you want for the capacity that your firm can handle. Obviously goes back to deciding on what your vision for your firm is and do you want to market for some growth? Do you want to be able to start getting enough influx of cases where you are going to have to hire, but that is what you want, right? If that's what you want, then you should be actively hiring for those new leads that you expect to come in because of the amount that you're putting into marketing. So it's all a balance. But in terms of what we feel is usually a healthy amount for a firm to, do you want to add something before we?
Let me add something before we go there, okay? Because you are a math major,
yes,
and taught math, and
I want it to be clear. I did math. I was on a weird spectrum. I went for teaching for elementary school, right? So my math degree was very much classes having to do with how to teach 1 + 1, and then all the way up to calculus and discrete. So you only use calculators for things. But I just want to preface that. I know how to add.
You are our math major.
Yeah.
I took 7 math classes in high school, and you may think that I am a genius in math, but the contrary is true. I had to take Algebra 2 a few times. that was a long time ago, but math is not my thing. But I think the combination of these things, like making it sort of really, really, really simple, is useful for us to help teach it. Because if I can understand it, there's a really good chance that somebody across the table from me can. So the very first thing to me is so preliminary, which is you need to have your books in order. Okay. Right. So you need to know in your QuickBooks how much money you made last year.
Yeah.
You need to know what your expenses are. You need to have accurate books. And when we work with firms and we start looking at their books and they're not accurate or they're not being kept up, the very first thing we need you to do is hire a bookkeeper, clean up those books, make them look meticulous. So getting your data in order. And I think the second thing is that you really in 2025 should have some kind of CRM to track where your business is coming from. And some basic idea as to where your money comes from. And look, if you don't have, a CRM being, something like HubSpot, Lead Docket, Lawmatics, there are no shortage of these both in and out of the legal industry to track leads. Salesforce being probably the biggest and most well-known CRM, but you need to be tracking those things. You could have an Excel spreadsheet that just is hey, here's where this call came from, but keep track of that. Also, there's a third number, which is what is your average case value?
Yeah.
So you have some concept that if you sign a case, a misdemeanor theft case, that's a $3,000 fee.
Right. So that if you have those numbers in order, that data in order, and how many leads you're coming in, how many are actually wanted cases, how much are you spending from those marketing sources. So that you can figure out which ones are the most profitable, because if your average case value is 3,000, but you're spending all this money on billboard or something, it may not be the most profitable marketing source to be in if your case value is only 3,000 per case.
So that basic data, that very basic data of having your books in order, having some idea as to how many leads you got, how many cases you signed, what they're worth, and maybe like what it cost you to acquire those cases, right? So you could say, look, I don't spend any money on marketing.
Right.
It cost me $0. And, through word of mouth or whatever, I made $300,000. Okay. But you just want to know those very basic things. So first step to me, if you're looking at, solving this problem of how to allocate money for marketing, which was sort of Rob's question to us, is absolutely to have those things in order.
Yeah. And I think another important part of that, which I've noticed from firms that we've worked with, is that a lot of them don't think about certain money that they are spending in their firm as marketing dollars when they should be thinking of them. So we'll ask clients when they're, coming to us for onboarding, like questionnaire, just to get an idea of numbers in their firm. And there's what's your monthly marketing budget or spend? And it's almost always like they give this one number of, they know they spend this much on like their SEO person. And like, that's the only number they know of. And so that's what their marketing budget is. But then they'll list out like all the different places that they're saying they're advertising, which is like they're doing meta ads, or they're doing PPC maybe, or, they're doing an e-newsletter and things like that I'm not seeing, them listing in this monthly spend. And so it's obvious that, right, they're not tracking everything correctly where they need it to be, which leads back into Ryan's point that you really need to know your numbers. You need to be tracking your expenses and your spends and which ones are actually marketing dollars and which aren't. Because some of them too, right, like those people that they're saying it's word of mouth, but are they word of mouth that you're spending money to take lawyers out to dinner to, be referrals to you? Because that should be considered marketing money, right? Obviously, it's far less than putting up a billboard, but it's still important for tracking purposes to understand that $200 dinner to set up a referral relationship was marketing and was money spent on marketing.
And so if you're doing a marketing consult, or we're working with somebody on a subscription basis or an intensive basis, really one of the first things we do is get a hold of the books and start looking at these things and asking questions and talking about recategorizing some things so we have an accurate picture. Because if we're, if it's bad data in, it's bad advice out. That is really sort of step one. And I'm gonna throw a little curveball, I think, for you, but we're gonna get to your thing, which is, I think, step two is really know what your vision is.
Agreed.
Because look, if you are like, hey, I kind of really like where I am, I want to serve, maybe I want to, maybe I want 10% more next year, fine. If you're like, I want to scale this firm to be a 100 lawyer firm, want to do it in 5 years, like that vision is going to impact your marketing budget. So we call it in the way, the destination. If you don't have a copy, please contact us. We'll mail you a copy. My children work like little elves on the weekends, stuffing envelopes and sending out copies of the way. So we will send it to you, but really understand your destination and be clear about it. Don't just do what other firms do or what you think you should do or what you hear on a podcast, because it is individual dependent. And so really, when we work with firms, getting that vision component of it right is, to me, step number two.
I absolutely agree with you. I think I talked about it up top a little bit about, right, if you're spending all this money on marketing and not realizing that if the vision for your firm, right, isn't growing and that you don't want to have to keep hiring more people, that all makes no sense to do it that way. So absolutely agree. If you're happy with the amount of leads that's coming in, okay, well, that's where you go back, you get your books in order, you get your data in order, and you figure out, okay, well, how much am I spending currently on marketing? I'm happy with that amount coming in. So let's keep doing that for next year. And that's the very basic beginnings, right, of like understanding what your marketing budget should be. And again, if you once you get your books in order and you realize the amount of leads you've got and how much you're spending on that, and you are in a position where you want your destination to be more leads coming in, okay, now you also have that as an idea.
And part of vision destination work really is identifying your ideal client.
Yeah.
One of the things we work with firms, and look, and personal injury firms are like people who are hurt bad. Well, okay, like that's okay. But oftentimes for other firms, they may say, look, I want to do estate planning for small business owners who have $3 million in liquid assets. Well, okay, because then it's like, well, what are the strategies that are going to work back to target that audience? To us, the same thing is true in personal injury. We really wanted to market to a clientele that appreciated good service and was knowledge hungry and liked the communication and wanted to know more. So our general client base was somebody who was really hurt and engaged in their treatment, cared to know more about their case. And, we didn't care what town they came from. We didn't care what jobs that they had. But that was a much better client for us than people who were just like, hey, I call you in 6 weeks and I get a check. That was not our ideal client. So even in that space, really think about who it is you want to be serving. Because I was reviewing some digital proposals for a firm, and the agencies had missed this, which was this person's vision was to do higher end divorce. And the towns that they were targeting were very middle class towns. And it's like, well, no, we want to target other locations here. So getting that component right. Yeah. Okay. So you've got your data, you've got some of the software, you got your vision, you've got these things sort of in place. And the next step is looking at your last year's gross revenue or looking at your projected revenue for this year. And why I say the or there, which is sort of step 3, is sometimes we work with personal injury firms whose income can be lumpy. They may have done $5 million last year on this great case. This year they don't have this massive case, so they don't want to base it upon $5 million. But firms that are more mature, established, or firms that deal more consistently with, we handle $10,000 divorces, maybe their income can be a little bit more predictable. But to me, it's last year's gross or really your projected or thinking about a blend of those two things.
Yeah, absolutely. And so once you have all of those factors in place, you take that either prior or projected gross, and essentially, if you want to have a more competitive, you want to keep growing, typically 10% of that is what we say to put into marketing. If you're happy with where your growth is at, and it's absolutely possible to run on a more conservative budget and be somewhere between like 6 and 8%, 9% even. So anywhere in that range is fine. Essentially, we typically tell clients to spend no more than 10% of their gross on marketing. We do feel like 10% gives you some aggressive growth. Obviously, yes, if you're in the right market and time for your firm to potentially spend a little more than that because of how aggressive you may want to be, it may be possible and it may be worthwhile, but it's very rare that we come across a firm that should be spending more than 10% on marketing. And often for those smaller firms, even especially, this was us for a very long time at Connecticut Trial Firm, we were spending less than 10%. We were having a very conservative budget. Somewhere typically 6% was probably the lowest we were going. Oftentimes I talk to firms and clients about spending somewhere between 6 and 8% on marketing to give them some marketing foothold, and what they're just not ready and to be aggressive enough yet because of their other needs, right? They're a solo or they have 2 people, and if they started to bump up to 10%, they would just be drowning for all the reasons we talked about earlier in the episode. So anyways, that gives you a little idea of the general range of what you should be spending of your gross on marketing.
There's an important thing I think for firms to realize, which is that if you're not spending 5%, maybe 3% on the absolute minimum, like you are going to lose market share.
Right.
It gets more expensive to market online. Somebody else is going to come into your neighborhood and do that. People are going to be less aware of you than need be. And it will only be more expensive later to have you find them later. Marketing is one of those things that never gets cheaper. It is cheapest today, will be more expensive tomorrow, and more expensive the day after, everywhere. So really and truly, if you're not investing 5%, you're probably slowly going to lose market share. You're probably slowly going to have a decline in revenues. And as I look at firm budgets in a macro sense, when we look at a holistic picture of the firm, not doesn't need to be the subject for the podcast, a 10% marketing budget makes a ton of sense, especially because most firms that we work with are looking to grow,
Right.
or they're looking to have more of their best clients, which is a form of growth. It's like they like these kinds of cases. They want more of them. And it's like, let's figure out a marketing strategy for that to happen. These cases may be more profitable. I feel comfortable for most firms recommending 10%, and it works at scale. Look, if you're a firm that did $250,000 last year, $25,000 in marketing, $2,000-ish a month, like that's a good spend for you. If you're looking to continue to grow, you're at $1 million, it's $100,000, and you're at 10 million, it's $1 million. It kind of continues to work with you as it is that you grow up. And I don't think that 10% for a decently run firm with all the other things that they have to pay, salaries, overhead, profit, insurance, software, all of those things. I think allocating 10% to marketing is a very smart play. I don't think it's all that risky. No. And also, keep adjusting and knowing what your numbers are. So if you're basing your marketing budget on a projected $1 million in revenue, but half of it is coming from one case, and that case is now not going to settle to the next year. Well, guess what? Redo your gross estimate and say, okay, well, now we have a $500,000 projected gross, and it's going to be a $50,000 projected marketing spend. So just be aware of those sorts of forces. Track it, talk to your accountant, your bookkeeper, your CFO, your COO, somebody really looking at these numbers on an ongoing basis to see if what you based your projections on are correct, if it needs to be dialed up, dialed down. Just really kind of think about those things. And the other thing is, don't just budget the money, like actually spend it. Actually invest in the practice, spend that money. If you're saying my budget is $50,000, spend it. Figure out how you're going to spend it, how you're going to allocate it. That's a subject for a whole nother podcast. But I think to answer Rob's question, we've given the context, what you need, some ideas for percentages. And look, there are some personal injury firms, Brittany, we've seen their books. They'll spend 45% on marketing.
Well, right, because they just have no idea what they're throwing their money at.
Well, they know, but these are mass advertising firms.
Oh, yes, those absolutely.
Oh,
yeah.
So they skimp out on other things,
yes.
but they they will spend in competitive PI markets. It could be 20-25%, but for a lot of folks out there who are listening to this is the way to approach it.
Yeah. Well, and plus, going back to why I agree with you that 10% I think is a healthy, reasonable number for almost anyone. Because the thing is, while we were at like 6% at Connecticut Trial Firm, we understood that being at that amount of spend meant a lot more boots on the ground marketing efforts that took more time away from the lawyering, right? And you had a structure that made that possible. But, again, for most smaller firms, that solo person or that firm that has the one or two lawyers and one or two team members, they're busy lawyering. They don't have as much time to be boots on the ground out there doing that sort of marketing. So yeah, that's when you're just going to have to understand that the compromise there is spending a little bit more instead of using your time.
So if you're out there and you're listening and you want some help with this stuff, please reach out to us. You can reach out to Brittany in particular about doing some marketing consults. This is the kind of work we do. Mm-hmm. We don't sell websites. We don't do this. It's really a holistic marketing approach that's tailored to you and your and your needs. So we can help you through these things. It's what we did at Connecticut Trial Firm. It's what we do at Best Era internally. It's what we do with a number of other firms that have seen success with it. Also talked about in The Way. So please get a copy of The Way, read it, 40 pages, really easy to read. So I think we've answered Rob's question.
I think so too.
And so Brittany, what is it that you are consuming?
Am I consuming right now? Well, I am waiting on a new book, actually. I'm a big fantasy reader as well. I like to dabble in all genres, but I'm a big fantasy person too. And so if anyone's a Fourth Wing series reader, her newest book, Onyx Storm, comes out next week. So I'm anxiously about to read that one. So I'm in between a book right now because I don't want to start a new one when I know that one's about to come out. By the time this episode comes out, I'm sure I'll have consumed that. Otherwise, I'm not consuming anything wholesome TV-wise. My husband and I are rewatching The OC because we are from that generation where that is our teenagehood and it's bringing us back. So that's what we're doing.
That's awesome.
What are you guys doing?
You ever download an album and then like kind of forget like you downloaded it or why it was on your phone? Of
course.
So I was flying to Philadelphia, which from Hartford is like a 45-minute flight, like almost gate to gate, not far. But I'm also on one of these planes that's the size of a Honda Civic, and there's no Wi-Fi. Like it's like Stone Ages. It is not my usual Delta environment that I'm used to. So I'm listening to an album that I downloaded, I guess, a while ago. Really enjoyed it. Listened to Noah Kahan live at Fenway Park.
Yes. Amazing.
And he had Gracie Abrams there, who's Taylor Swift's fan.
Yeah. Oh, Noah Kahan has my heart. I mean, obviously you all know Taylor's my number one, but Noah Kahan's usually is always in my top 5, at least, the past several years that he's been out there making music.
I haven't really listened to him much. Like I'm familiar with some of his songs, but I hadn't really like listened to it. But really, what a fun like upbeat concert. He puts his all into it. His band sounds great. Gracie Abrams sounded great. Like it was
she has a very nice voice.
It was sounded like you could practically feel the summer night at Fenway Park. And if you're looking in this cold part of January or whenever you're listening to it, if you want a slight taste or feel of summer, highly recommend Noah Kahan's live at Fenway Park.
Plus, I think he's a fellow New Englander that I think just vibes with us. So. Yeah. Definitely 5 out of 5 stars recommend.
So, till next time, thank you so much for listening to The Way.
We'll see you then.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of The Way with Best Era. Be sure to visit our website, bestera.io. From there, get more resources, insights, and to connect with us directly. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform. That way you never miss an episode. Until next time, keep striving for your version of success.